If something happened to you tomorrow, do you have the structure in place that keeps things running for your clients, for your team, and for your family?
Running the business doesn't have to be stressful if you focus and live out the concept of de-risking. If there was a big problem, you would have probably fixed it already if you were meant to fix it.
I can already hear some of you right now listening. It's like, okay, but where do I even start?
Welcome to the Total Succession Show. I'm your host, Tyson Ray, joined by Kim Cochenour. We're glad you're here. Subscribe at totalsuccession.com/podcast and let each episode guide you closer to a confident, well-planned exit. Today's conversation just might be the nudge you need to start preparing for what's next.
Your name is on the door, your fingerprints are on everything, and unfortunately, that's part of the problem. If your business depends on you to survive, that is a liability. Today on the Total Succession Show, we're exposing the hidden risks of what drains your value, stalls your succession, and puts your clients at risk if you're not there. It's time to de-risk your practice, and so we're going to dig into it. Tyson, let's kind of start from there. What exactly do you mean when you say de-risking a business? Where does that come from?
Yeah, well, it comes from the world of exit planning, and it comes from when you're getting valuation work done and someone's looking to acquire your practice. They're wanting to identify and understand and dig into what are the perceived risks, what are the known risks, and one of the ways to enhance your value in an exit or succession situation, and at the same time, one of the ways just to give yourself as the advisor um, less stress,
Mm,
right?
yeah,
To know that it's not all on you.
yeah.
Um, Part of de-risking is part of bringing more peace into your life, a
Mm,
more contentment into your life, and just less stress in a world where we're managing risk and there's stress and all these outside things in the markets and those things and dealing with clients. Your business, running the business doesn't have to be stressful if you focus and live out the concept of de-risking.
yeah. Well, and it's your business isn't, if you're thinking of succession and it's all dependent on you, it's not even sellable. That just makes it really fragile too for you and your loved ones. So I know when you turned 50, we kind of went through a stress test of our own internally and we learned a lot of things. And I think it's helpful for you to share with those listening kind of what some of those gaps were for us and what you kind of went through on your own.
Yeah, what I visualized was the stress test of when I went to the executive Mayo Clinic and they hook you up and you had a hose around your mouth and you got all the freaking, electron nodes or whatever to
Yeah.
monitor your heart, and you're running on a treadmill at like a pretty significant incline for as long as you can, as hard as you can.
Hmm.
And I remember they made, and then the idea is you're eventually going to quit. And I remember I'm like, I'm not quitting. I'm not quitting. They're not going to make me quit. And so I am running and running. They actually shut the machine down for me, partially because I think my heart rate got to like 220 or something. They got scared, right?
Yeah. They're nervous
Um,
about it.
right. And it's like, that's you who own these businesses, right? It starts slow. You feel good about it, but it just starts becoming exhausting and it starts
Mhm.
becoming like an uphill battle. And I've met advisors. I myself had been in places in my life where all of a sudden you brought on a new client or a second new client and you didn't even want them because it's like the work and how are you
Mm.
going to find time? And that's all part of this de-risking your practice, is getting the burdens and getting some of the responsibilities off your plate. Because from a valuation standpoint, if the practice can run itself, if the practice can basically work without you, it's much more valuable to somebody who's going to acquire it. And at the same time, the business may be more valuable to you as the owner if it doesn't have to be you that has to do everything.
So while you kind of unloaded some specific things, but like what was it that when we were looking at the business last year and kind of identifying what are some of the gaps that we needed to fill in, whether that be in the legal documentation, whether it's the right people in the right seats. Like, share a couple of those things with everyone listening, what those gaps were that we identified.
It first went back to, I had some kiddos and I did my own estate plan, and it dawned on me, I'm like, "Okay, well, this is 20 years ago." I realized back then, it's like, okay, well, what happens to the clients? Like, they're like family, right? If I keeled over, and that's where I first brought on effectively another advisor, another partner, and created our first succession plan that basically created the backup. And then it freed me, going back to de-risking, it freed me to be able to tell clients, here's the plan.
Mhm.
And I was 30, not 50, right? It's like, here's the plan. If I'm not here, here's the person I trust to take things over. So it's not just me. And then what we did a year ago is we just continued to try and identify what are the things that I do, even if I love doing them, what are the things that I do, and who else on the team knows how to do some of those things. So we can start building teams and committees and support around making sure work gets done, making sure I can delegate so then I can elevate. That's an EOS term. I can hear Andrea Schlappi in my head with that one, right? That we can delegate down, teach down to allow me to be free to work in my unique ability. That's a strategic coach phrase, uh, where I get energy and joy and I'm empowering the team. And so we just started identifying the gaps that were in our practice, um, either from how budgeting and finances are being done to how the portfolios are being run, and the decisions there, to the software and how the team is utilizing that, making sure that no intellectual capital is trapped in my head. And that's all part of de-risking. Part of de-risking is paying attention to, cash reserves and cash balances and whether or not you're carrying any debt on the practice and understanding what those things are. The legal documents, reviewing how employees were contracted, what non-competes were in place, if any, and the scenario that, again, if I drop dead, what allows us to the next day keep servicing clients.
Mm. Yeah. And so I think it was really helpful to be really honest about what would happen if if the leaders of the firm were not in place, and really identify some of the documentation gaps. I think that's huge because a lot of times the visionaries or the owners, they've just done it for so long, they don't think about it anymore. But if someone were to come and sit in your seat, would that someone have a playbook to follow to be successful? Now, there's a lot you have to learn along the way. A proper punch list of things to accomplish to get the outcome won't get you all the way there, but it's a better step than nothing. And one thing I think, Tyson, that we get a lot of questions about is actually your G2. And are you actually letting them grow enough? Are you letting them be involved enough so that if you stepped out, would they be able to step up? So I want you to talk just a little bit about that transition for you, because I think that almost is probably one of the harder things for those listening to actually maybe wrap their head around.
Yeah, and the hardest thing for you that's listening to this to wrap your head around is you don't know how much information that's trapped in your head that someone else needs to know to pick that relationship up as if they were you. And what we've done well over the years is using the technology that we've built out so that we can have documented it's a second marriage. These kids belong to these kids. These kids are adopted. They're waiting to have their left knee replaced. They had the right one replaced 2 years ago.
Mhm.
Or they're battling a cancer diagnosis, or they're dealing with an aging parent that's just moved into a care facility. These things are all, I go back to a best, you want to de-risk your practice, be like a medical practice that they have effectively the medical chart that a doctor has listed. This is the diagnosis. This is the care plan. These are the prescriptions. These are the therapies. These are the meetings that we've had, that another doctor can pick that up and continue on caring for that patient because they have all the information they need. And in financial services, it's not the portfolios. That's easy. right? It's not past performance or the guessing of what future rates or return are going to be. What it is going back to the name of our firm, Form. It is what's going on in their family. How are their parents? How are their kids? How are their loved ones? How are their relationships? It's knowing what their occupation was. And in some cases in that occupation, that's also usually the wealth story of where the money came from, whether they sold a business or they saved for many, many years. What was their sacrifice to now have what they have? And where are they in this occupation of what becomes retirement? What are the hobbies and interests that they have that they enjoy doing? The trips they've taken, the trips they want to take, the bucket list items they want to do in their life. What is their mission that they want to? So we're writing out the answers and keeping track of the history of these relationships so that we know when we pick up the phone, right? We're in southern Wisconsin, so and this is so not my love language if any of you know me well, but like football season, you have Packers and you have Bears, and we're on the border, right? So you have a little mix of both. And so we want to know, okay, you don't reference the Packer game to this client because they're a raving Bear fan and Bears haven't done so well for so long. Or you get to call and be like, you crushed it because for whatever reason, on a rare occasion, the Bears beat the Packers. And it's those types of things that if a G2 for even the first time was picking up the client and apologizing that the Bears lost again, the client
It
just starts laughing
neutralizes
and realizes,
everything.
yes, the
Mhm.
client just connects, right? That trust and that relationship can be downloaded, transferred, and then uploaded back to the client to go, the firm cares for you. The
Uh-huh.
firm knows who you are.
Yeah.
And it doesn't put the burden on any one person when we do it that way. And that's a
Yeah.
big part of de-risking.
Yeah, that's huge. So even if your practice might look profitable on paper, if you are lacking documentation and equipped and empowered G2, your legal agreements are a mess, those things eat away at your business worth and it'll impact what a buyer is willing to pay in the succession space. So most advisors we've found really underestimate what prepare really means. So, what preparation can really look like when it comes like what can it look like when it comes to de-risking? So, Tyson, can you kind of talk us through that? I'd like for you to try and give maybe 3 tangible ways to start de-risking right now.
Yeah, one of the biggest ways of de-risking is understanding, in legal terms, who owns the client.
Mm,
So the client, usually referred to in our industry as goodwill or the relationship,
mhm,
is either owned by your broker dealer or the firm you custodian with, or they're owned by your individual registration. And for decades, I knew of, and I even myself made the mistake of thinking I'm selling my doing business as corporation that I didn't realize could not legally actually own the client goodwill. So I was selling shares of something I thought was worth a lot when it turned out it wasn't worth much of anything but the desks and maybe a little cash in a bank account. Like the value of the practice was attached to my rep code.
mhm,
And we had done buy sell agreements and we had done all this. And then we realized it was all wrong because the entity didn't own the clients. The clients were owned by me individually. And if they're owned by you individually, and they are for a lot of people, the only way your business, you're doing business as your company, can own the client is if it becomes an RIA and is registered with the SEC, because only a registered agent can own client goodwill. And that's
mhm.
either your license as an individual or it's your firm that you create as an RIA. And I think that's why a lot of people are moving to the RIA space because they're realizing, oh, wait a second, I can't do some of the succession planning I want to do
Yep.
when it's attached to me.
Mhm.
And in fact, when we realized this before we created our own RIA, we had to go back and clean up our legal documents because we had a legal document of how we were going to transition the doing business as entity of Form Wealth Advisors, and then a separate agreement of how we were going to transact the goodwill amongst our individual licenses.
Mhm.
And
Yep.
so many people are getting this wrong.
Mhm.
Part of it is get outside of your own expertise. You don't know what you don't know. There are attorneys that specialize in financial services that can help you navigate where's the value of your practice and who actually owns what.
Mhm.
And based on that, then what do these legal documents need to do? We found out that actually our succession document before we came an RIA, the firm that we custodianed with that held our registrations actually had their own documentation that they wanted us to use that we didn't even know. We had our own succession plan with the doing business as that didn't own any of the clients. And so what outside of your own knowledge, it's using your attorney and using some of the legal resources of your custodian to identify, okay, how does this really need to be structured? Because we tend to do some things, create maybe an agreement in between a few parties, maybe grab the local attorney you use and they draft the typical, maybe some buy-sell language or an option to purchase or succession for death and disability like they do any other business, but they don't understand the SEC, they don't understand FINRA, they don't understand the
That's huge.
custodian rules. And so it's building a team around how should this be structured. And don't make my mistake. If you would have asked me a couple of years ago, do you have a succession plan? I'm like, yeah, done. Check the box. Awesome. Nope. Right. And if you wait till you get into the sale phase or succession phase of actually transitioning this thing to find out it's not done right, it takes time to get that fixed. And so I would encourage you, and I think a best practice of de-risking is review this just like we tell clients to review their state documents every 5 years. I think it's every couple of years, go stick it underneath an attorney who specializes in financial services and go stick it underneath the legal counsel of those you custodian with and or the compliance entity you're working with to verify, yes, this is still in compliance. This is best practice. This meets the SEC or FINRA standards that govern a lot of this. And have the peace of mind of knowing it's right, one, and two, what does it say? So, and who else needs to know what it says outside of you and maybe the acquirer or your buddy next door that said they'd buy your practice if you drop dead? Like, what does your team need to know?
Mhm.
And who else on the team needs to know to execute that if something happened to you, what happens?
Yeah, yeah. So I'm gonna do what I do well for you. So I'm gonna bring that down to 3 bullet points. So you really need to make sure you review and update your operating agreement and partnership agreements. You need to establish what a buy-sell agreement would look like or review your current one. And you need to create a key person contingency plan that's legally documented. Those are 3 easy ways to kind of get started on de-risking your practice now. And Tyson, as you said, is part of the reason why you bring this up is it's wise because it's in alignment with a couple of different trains of thought around succession planning. And in the book, you talk about the P in the space framework to actually prepare. So I can already hear some of you right now listening. It's like, okay, but where do I even start? I'm not an attorney. I don't even know if I have all of those correct documents in place, let alone if they're right. So, Tyson, if someone's kind of feeling a little overwhelmed at this first step, who do they really need to talk to first?
I feel it's reaching out to an attorney that specializes in the financial services or reaching out
Hmm.
to the legal counsel that's inside the custodians that you have relationships with because they have the experts that represent the custodian's interest or obligations.
Hmm.
And I think de-risking is starting with the assumption that assume it's wrong
Mm.
and go get it verified that it's not. Instead, we assume it's right, and so it's not urgent, and so we just discard it when it's
Hmm.
extremely important.
Yes, that's very true. And an attorney, you will be able in the right field. And if you don't know someone in the industry, start at your custodian. Tyson, that's a great recommendation. They are going to know connections for you, but their team clearly specializes in this, and they'll help you kind of get started evaluating if things are current. If your firm has changed at all, they can help you understand if it reflects where you're at today. And truthfully, once you kinda get in the weeds of it, you really wanna make sure that holds up, because if something happened to you tomorrow, do you have the structure in place that keeps things running for your clients, for your team, and for your family? So this conversation, truthfully alone, will help bring up some gaps if you didn't know there were any. but you're not stuck. There's going to be a way for you to keep moving forward. And that's like the whole purpose behind the space framework that Tyson built out. It's kind of taking your structure and moving it forward. So it's breaking it down in ways for you actually to be able to use it. And a big thing Tyson talked a lot about here today is de-risking your business. It's not quick, it's not easy, but it's critical because at the end of the day, no one is guaranteed tomorrow. So, Tyson, let's wrap this up. What do you want advisors to remember most from this conversation today?
Uh, De-risking, you don't have to do it yourself. You have
Mm,
to let other people come in and help you see the risks you have because most likely you're blinded to them. If there was a big problem, you would have probably fixed it already if you were meant to fix it.
mm,
And in a lot of cases with just the buy-sell agreements or the structure of the business, and you have a G2 or you have a succession plan, delegate that to whoever that person is on the team or who's next in charge if you're not there, and have them reach out to the attorney and get the documents and get the review. And you get to basically just be brought into the meetings once they're coming back to the summaries. The mistake an advisor makes as you're listening to this, the mistake you will make is you're going to think you have to put that as a to-do for you to go take care of it. And it's just delegating it to somebody else. And that's part of the power of hiring an attorney is because you get to pay them for their service, spend a little bit of money, make it their problem, send them the documents, have them ask you the questions and get a second opinion as if you
mhm.
were the client, because really you are.
You are. Yeah, Tyson, that's great advice. It takes one first step, but you also have to let the experts speak into the space. So that's a wrap for today, and thanks for listening. Be sure to join us next week. We're talking to Alex Goss from New Edge Advisors about how advisors can gain freedom and support without giving up control. We're really looking forward to that episode and look forward to more conversations like this.
These conversations are designed to support your next move, however close or far it may be. Tap subscribe and let each episode guide you closer to a confident, well-planned exit. I've wrestled with these things myself, and that's exactly why I created something to help you do it with less stress and more direction. My book, Total Succession, is now available on Amazon. Inside, I break the process down into 5 clear steps to help you exit on your terms with confidence, full compensation, and your client's best interests at heart. You can also visit totalsuccession.com/podcast to download a free starter guide that walks you through my SPACE framework: see, prepare, act, commit, exit. Remember, you only exit your business once. Create the space to do it well. Thanks for listening. Until next time.